Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving straight into some incredibly fascinating source material that challenges a lot of the commonly held beliefs we all have about spiritual growth. The text is really inviting us to look way past those superficial metrics and uncover what true maturity actually looks like. It's a concept that might actually surprise you, because, well, what we see on the surface rarely tells the whole story, right? Let's jump in and see what the source material actually reveals.
Okay, so let's start this off by asking you to think for a second. What assumptions do you immediately make when you hear the phrase spiritually mature? Have you ever looked at someone and just thought, wow, that person really has it all together spiritually? But what exactly made you think that? Was it how they spoke? Or maybe how they acted? The text asks us to really hold a mirror up to those initial assumptions and see if they actually hold water.
We so often measure growth by these really external, highly visible factors. We tend to look at someone's vast knowledge of Scripture, their super eloquent prayers, the sheer number of years they've attended church, or maybe their lofty ministry positions. But the source text presents a pretty stark reality here. Knowledge alone absolutely does not equal maturity. A person can literally know complex theology backward and forward and still entirely lack basic compassion. They can teach others, but completely avoid their own personal transformation. These crossed-out metrics represent just how easy it is to measure spirituality in the exact wrong way.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is that true maturity isn't just about head knowledge. It's about what that truth actually produces within you over time. The source highlights a massive paradox. The flashy qualities that impress humans the most are rarely the qualities that matter most to God. It's a completely internal transformation, not some external performance. The source material argues that true growth is often hidden way beneath the surface, completely reshaping who we are at our core.
Section 1. Transforming the Inner Self. The Unseen Foundation.
The text points out a really fascinating contrast here. The world we live in constantly celebrates self-promotion, right? It's all about building a personal brand and being the absolute loudest voice in the room. But the kingdom reality celebrates the exact opposite: humility. Spiritually mature individuals actually lose that burning need to win every single argument. Because they're deeply secure in who they are, they just don't need constant recognition or applause. Instead, they become highly teachable and approachable. They recognize that their growth never truly ends. And you know what? The more they learn, the more humble they naturally become. And this brings us to a major key: consistency. Anyone can be passionate for a short season or really faithful when circumstances are easy and everybody's watching. But the text reveals that maturity isn't about perfection. It's a step-by-step journey of consistency. It's maintaining steady prayer, steady character, and steady obedience even when your emotions are completely depleted or when literally no one is watching to give you credit. True faithfulness, it turns out, is a whole lot more about the quiet, daily grind than those dramatic, highlight reel moments we all love to share. Another major inner shift highlighted in the material is self-control. And there's a beautiful distinction made here. Self-control is not a weakness or just some suppression of who you are. It is strength under direction. A mature believer doesn't allow every single emotion to completely run the show, and they definitely don't react impulsively to every offense. Think about getting cut off in traffic or reading a really aggravating comment online. Instead of allowing anger or fear to dominate in that split second, a mature believer has developed the vital ability to pause, pray, reflect, and then respond with wisdom. This inner transformation also brings incredible peace during difficult times. Let's be honest, anyone can remain calm when life is smooth sailing, but maturity becomes highly visible during difficulty. The source notes that mature believers don't necessarily avoid fear or disappointment entirely. They just know exactly where to place their trust when the boat starts rocking. They understand that temporary storms do not cancel out eternal promises, and that allows them to remain steady. Not because they have all the answers themselves, but because they fully trust the one who does.
Section 2. Loving and forgiving others. The relational character.
Perhaps no characteristic is emphasized more in the source material than love. But we aren't talking about love as just some fleeting emotion here. It's love as a definitive, everyday choice and an action. Scripture measures spirituality by love, reminding us that it is the active choice to practice patience when you are completely exhausted and kindness when it is highly inconvenient. It's choosing compassion precisely when compassion requires personal sacrifice. While so many try to measure spirituality by visible talents, the text argues it should solely be measured by exactly how we love.
And nothing reveals true maturity quite like forgiveness. Immaturity naturally clings tightly to offenses, viewing them almost like a protective shield. But maturity intentionally releases them.
Now, the source carefully notes this doesn't mean mature people just ignore injustice or pretend that real pain never happened. Actually, it's a refusal to let bitterness become a permanent resident in their hearts. They realize that unforgiveness ultimately hurts the carrier the most, so they actively pursue the freedom that comes with just releasing the offense entirely.
This changes their entire orientation toward other people. The world constantly asks, how can I be served? What's in it for me? But spiritual maturity completely flips the script to ask, how can I serve? The text describes this by pointing directly to Jesus, the King who willingly became a servant. Following that model, mature believers constantly look for quiet, completely unglamorous opportunities to help, encourage, and strengthen others, entirely without seeking recognition or praise for themselves. It just becomes second nature.
Section 3. True wisdom and dependence, the spiritual posture. Here we have a really vital distinction explored in the text between knowledge and wisdom. See, knowledge simply tells you what is true, but wisdom teaches you how to actually apply that truth to your daily life. The source emphasizes that spiritually mature people think far beyond immediate emotions and temporary circumstances. They realize a profound truth that is honestly pretty rare today. Not every opportunity should be pursued, not every battle should be fought, and for sure, not every opinion needs to be expressed on the internet. Wisdom very often appears in the form of quiet restraint and careful discernment. This leads to a truly beautiful paradox in the believer's posture. While the world vigorously celebrates absolute self-sufficiency, the whole idea of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps, the kingdom celebrates surrender. The text notes that mature believers actually become increasingly aware of their complete dependence on God. They learn that true strength doesn't come from human achievement or personal ability at all. And recognizing this produces a quiet confidence that is completely free of arrogance and a deep humility that is completely free of insecurity.
Section 4. The ultimate spiritual foundation, pursuing God above all.
The text distills everything we've talked about down to this singular, incredibly powerful quote. The greatest treasure is God Himself. At the absolute deepest possible level, we discover that spiritual maturity isn't about appearing spiritual to your peers. It isn't about your reputation, your success, your personal ambition, or landing some fancy ministry title. It is, quite simply, about wanting God more than anything else. Every other characteristic we've explored today flows naturally and directly from that one core relationship.
Ultimately, the source material suggests that true spiritual maturity might surprise you, precisely because it rarely attracts attention. It doesn't need to be allowed, and it doesn't demand a massive public platform to validate itself. Instead, it looks like quiet faithfulness. It's the steady obedience, the growing humility, the increasing love, and the deeper trust that happens completely out of the spotlight. It's building a consistent character anchored in a sincere, unseen desire to just know God more.
So, the final overarching truth we pull from the source is this. Spiritual growth is never, ever measured by how impressive you appear to the world or how well you play a religious part. It is solely measured by how much your everyday life increasingly reflects the character, the heart, and the love of Christ. The goal was never to become more religious. The goal is to become more like Jesus.
I want to leave you with this provocative thought straight from the source material to measure your own journey right now. Are you just becoming more religious, or are you actually becoming more like Jesus? If this explainer resonated with you today, I highly encourage you to keep seeking that deeper, quieter, and far more profound internal transformation. Thanks so much for learning with me today.